We also, I gotta say, the Dylan Raiola performance, and we'll start there, was even impressive to the point that as I was gathering intel across the nation about other spring games and other quarterback battles or other young quarterbacks who were being evaluated, I would see Dylan Raiola's name come up like, well, our young quarterback is supposed to be really good. He's supposed to be battling for the job. He didn't look like Dylan Raiola. He didn't show that. So, with everything that he delivered uh, at Memorial Stadium on Saturday, what impressed you the most?
I think just his poise. He looked like a guy who has a full season or two under his belt out there with his overall command, just the way, he was calm, relaxed in the pocket just from the jump. You can tell that he trusts his ability and he trusts what he knows about this offense, and even in a 14 practices, what he knows about this offense, and some of the game plans they've implemented, some of the things that they've worked on, throwing him in the fire. It just seemed everything came really easy for him in comparison. And you just look at the mechanics and the way, people, posted video of him making that deep throw. If you look at just the way that ball is just a flick of the wrist for him, right? And that's all mechanical. It's all just stemming from his lower body, bringing the shoulder through, and just kind of being able to swing it, but also just keeping everything tight and fundamental. So that way those throws are right on the money, most every single time. And even the throws that were off, I won't speak of the account in question here, but there is a account on Twitter that posted a video of his incompletions, his 7 incompletions. And if you look at most of those were essentially the defender being underneath the route and him throwing it to where his receiver could get it at the back of the end zone, or it's going to be incomplete. So he sailed a couple of them. Another one was the back of the end zone. The receiver didn't adjust in time, but he could have caught it. And so, but there was one bad throw, and then one of them was, he threw it a little bit to the back shoulder of the receiver, and the receiver tipped the ball in the air, and it was intercepted off of the tip. And that one is just like a slight little thing. So his poise in the pocket, the way his energy was, and now Matt Rule had spoken about this previously. I think it was the last week, the week before, or one of the coaches did, essentially about they are working with Raiola on keeping his energy up because everybody feeds off of his natural energy out there. That's just the type of player he is. And we saw him interacting and doing handshakes with the guys, after they score a touchdown. You could tell the energy was there, the camaraderie is there. And then, we were able to see a guy who's supposed to have growing pains go out there and throw the rock like this was his 3rd spring game. And that was very telling, because that's the biggest thing we want to see. You're going out there against a defense that didn't have the normal front, defensive line. So you have to take that account. And then also, a lot of defensive players get rotated through. But that still, in many cases of spring games, freshman quarterback don't look like that, and so it's one of those things that you can't discount it, but it's tempered. You got to have tempered expectations, but what we saw should have everybody, extremely excited and kind of maybe a little bit more confident than we even were before.
So, had we had a disappointing season or spring game out of Dylan Raiola, we would hear the backlash, and we would hear a number of people, not everyone, a lot of people would be measured and say, hey, not a huge deal. It's only 1 out of 15. But I certainly can think of some other cases. Justin Fields comes to mind. He had a 3 for 15 spring game at Ohio State, and people were jumping off bridges left and right. And the guy threw 41 touchdowns with 3 picks that year. So relax.
Yeah.
But it's nice. It's just nice to get that confirmation that what we expected him to be. Now he's going to continue to learn and have growing pains and face adversity and work through things and all of that. He's not going to be super, super consistent, but it is nice to see, okay, well, he looks the part.
Yes.
already, and here he is. Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand because, people are like, it's a spring game. We can't tell much from that and all this other stuff. But if you understand the nuances of the game and in the game within the game, there are things that you can look for in your quarterback to know if he's going to be ready or if you think he's going to be ready or if he is currently ready. And a lot of that has to do with the calm and composure, understanding and reading defenses, being able to, whenever the pressure's in your face, thrown off your back foot, being able to deliver a good ball or knowing when not to deliver that ball and get out of bounds. There's decision making, there's football acumen, football IQ, there's body language. All of that stuff was very, very, um, you know, it didn't seem like a true freshman. It didn't seem like an 18-year-old kid. And so those are the things that give you confidence because those are the things on the field that are going to translate. Him knowing his ability and being confident in this offense and being comfortable in this offense and trusting his ability. And you saw all of the quarterbacks had calm feet. They were very poised in the pocket. And so that's something that we can take away from this. Now, the stat lines, okay, of course, we're not going to sit there and just all over the stat line. What we should do, though, is look for those small details, like wide receivers. Are the wide receivers better in their route running? Are they creating separation? There's game within the game that people could pay attention to.
Absolutely. And as you can see on the banner there, folks, we would love to hear from you. Get your evaluation because this is just the one time between late November of last season and all the way to the final Saturday of August that we get a look at this football team start to finish. Sure, video clips are out there, particular plays in practice and all of that, but start to finish. So we would love to hear from you because we know we've got a dedicated bunch of Husker fans to get your take. So leave your takes, good or bad, questions involving what you saw on Saturday, and we will read through those as we go through the hour here.
Absolutely.
So if you had to name a couple other players that you thought, okay, this is, was an opportunity for them to shine. They came through. They showed me something. I'm happy to see that this person's made progress. Who would be those guys?
So there was actually quite a few of those guys. Jalen Lloyd went for 97 yards and a touchdown. Jalen Lloyd, of course, a burner last season, deep ball threat. But what he really has gotten better at is he's gotten a lot better at what I talked about earlier, just route running, creating separation, be able to not only be a deep ball threat, but be able to expand his skill set and set up those explosive plays. The Jalen Lloyd is going to be a huge, huge part of this offense. So, of course, but he was one of those guys we expected to kind of have a big game. Ja'Cory Barney showed his explosiveness in many ways. He was all over the field, had a 78-yard kick return, which would have been a touchdown return, but the kicker was in a gray jersey and he was in a white jersey. And so he didn't realize the kicker – it was pretty funny. He didn't realize the kicker was on the other team. And so he just ran right into him, got tackled. So it would have been a touchdown had he avoided the kicker. But yes, but then a couple of just mistakes in the end zone, but you will take that trade-off. It's a guy who is explosive and he could run the ball back for 100 yards, but he's got to get better at learning when to let it go back in the end zone, when to take it out, when not, little things like that. That'll come in time. I would say probably the biggest, I don't know, the guy that stood out to me the most, Ja'Cory Barney. I mean, not Ja'Cory Barney. I'm sorry, Janair Bonner. At wideout, former, play tight end, play fullback. We talked about him last week, how Matt Rule had mentioned that he's an NFL fullback. And I was talking about that kind of speaks to his attention to the details of, he wants to do the dirty work. He wants to learn to block. He wants to set the edge on the outside. And not only that, he's a tremendous wideout. And so Janarian Bonner is going to be a big part of this team. And I think a lot of people might be underrating his how he's going to look out there. But I have seen more and more people jumping on board with Bonner. And then, Emmett Johnson for me. Emmett Johnson is probably my favorite player on this team. A lot of people saw Dowdle go out there, 76 yards on 7 carries and 2 touchdowns. However, Emmett Johnson is the guy, and that showed out there in just his ability to win at the line of scrimmage in any way possible. He runs hard, he runs physical, but he also is quick and agile and knows how to beat somebody at the line of scrimmage with his jump cuts, and his ability to operate in a small space, and also his mind. Dowdle he's good, right? He's going to be really good, and he's going to be a big part of this offense too. Probably, running back 2 or 3 with, but Gabe Irvin's going to be up there as well. But I think Emmett Johnson's the guy, and I think the coaches and everybody has alluded to that being the case in the way they speak about him. And so, Emmett Johnson. I know other people said that they think Dowdle will be the starter. I disagree. I think Emmett Johnson's the guy. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then I'll save the most improved for last, and that was Heinrich Haarberg. And, Heinrich Haarberg last year was kind of one of those guys who was drop back, I'm going to make a read, and I'm out, or drop back, pressure coming, I'm out. And it was less, more so about him making the best play in terms of the football play, right? Trying to get whatever yards he could, not really going through the progressions, not having, the technique down to be able to consistently complete, passes. He had that front shoulder flying open. So all of his deep balls were just kind of sailing, or getting pulled out, like pulled to the right, or, so a lot of mechanical things, but it was very, very evident. And for anybody who had any hesitations about the hire of Glenn Thomas, that looked like a different quarterback throwing the ball out there. He was calm in the pocket. He was poised. He took what the defense gave him when it was there, and he set up the deep ball for himself. And so what he showed there was a huge improvement, and he showed that he's probably going to be the quarterback 2 on this team. He's probably going to beat out Kalen. A lot of people with Kalen, are being a little hard on him, but with Kalen, all he did was go out there and make true freshman mistakes, and that's what you expect from a true freshman. But he got better as the game progressed, and that's the biggest thing, right? As the game goes along, does he get rattled? Does he start overthinking this? I made a couple of bad throws, and he gets real tight. But he didn't. He played loose. He played relaxed. He loosened up as the game went along, and he got better as it went along.
This is LFG's signature move. I love it. Every time he gets in the chat, he lets us know, I'm like number 1, I'm like number 13, I'm like number 37. So, you know what that reminds everyone? To hit the like button. LFG's number 2. You can be number 4, number 8, number 15, whatever it is, but it just reminds everyone. So I love that move by LFG. That's his signature move, but LFG brings more than that. Always excellent football analysis out of LFG. So what's he got here concerning Raiola is situational awareness, pre-snap processing remains calm, can throw the deep out to the opposite sideline, which of course is an NFL mark of a quarterback who's on his way.
Yes, a lot of people making the comparison just in the way he throws the ball and the way he operates out there and just the way he carries himself, and his ability to change arm slots and on arm angles. A lot of people say he looks, and I hate saying this stuff because people are like, "Oh, you're saying he's going to be him?" No, he looks like a Patrick Mahomes, right? And when you say that, like, a guy can look like Mahomes in terms of his mannerisms, his mechanics, especially when they worked with the same quarterback coach. You probably expect, and he said he was going out to work with Mahomes' other quarterback coach after the spring game. And so when you say that stuff, people just kind of freak out at the name. But in the way he carried himself and his poise and composure, and the way he, went around and kind of lifted his teammates up, and stuff like that, that's a lot of what you see from Patrick Mahomes, and just the way he throws the ball. It's just very similar in his mechanics and his arm slots. Like, all of it is a very, very similar operation, which we're not saying he's going to be that. But also Patrick Mahomes wasn't that in college. So take that for what it's worth at Texas Tech. But yeah, just a very calm, posed guy out there, and you can tell he's worked with some of these guys that have experience and some of these guys that just know how to get this stuff down to muscle memory. And that's what it comes down to. The reason he looks so calm, composed, he trusts his mechanics. So he's not tight. Like he's not like sitting there like, keeping his shoulder and everything tight. You need to be able to unlock that shoulder, open that up, and be able to just trust your mechanics to get the ball there. When you start thinking about it, you start pushing the ball, or you start using your arm too much, you start using your elbow too much. That's when the throws, you short arm them, or you throw them a little right. So he trusts his mechanics, and I think that is the biggest things. And like he said, he trusts his pre-snap processing, and that's something they worked on. His ability to read the play before the snap, and then also be able to see what potentially that coverage was disguised as, and rotating to.
I was doing some review concerning Michigan and their quarterback situation coming up. Also, obviously connected to JJ McCarthy's performance last year and then his draft status this year as a top 5 pick. So I'll mention this real quick, and then I'll connect the Nebraska numbers to it, because I was reminded as I was looking at this today, preparing for Michigan podcast, Steve Dace. I'm on there, so give it a look. But it was just funny that this has to be the first time in the history of the NFL where a quarterback's taken in the top 5 in the draft, and Michigan threw the ball. They were number 122 in the country in pass attempts per game. That just doesn't happen where a guy is that well thought of, and they didn't let him throw the ball much.
Exactly.
So while I'm looking at that today, I'm reminded, okay, Nebraska's right there too. They were like 130.
Mm-hmm.
And what makes it even more odd for Nebraska was, well, Michigan was undefeated. So they're leading almost all those games wire to wire. Nebraska didn't get blown out. So they were not one of those teams that had to throw because, oh, they're down by 21 constantly in the fourth quarter. They're playing competitive games almost every week, but still, they were usually in a situation where their last drive, at least, or a couple drives, they had to throw the football, and still were number 130 in the nation in pass attempts. So, realistically speaking, with the weapons they have, you mentioned Jalen Lloyd and others, Jamal Banks coming in from Wake, Isaiah Nair. If Raiola develops to a reasonable point, we're not going to put too much on him like he's going to be the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Where do you think Matt Rule and Marcus Satterfield would like to be with this offense in regards to a pass run ratio?
Yeah, I would probably, man, I put that probably extremely balanced, maybe 60-40 pass lean, maybe 65-35. But I do think it all depends, I think, on how they use this stable of running backs, because we saw a lot of stuff, RPO stuff and stuff being thrown at and behind the line of scrimmage to the wideouts and or to the running backs and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be very, very dependent on how they rotate those running backs, because if we have a guy like Ramir out there more, then we're going to probably be throwing the ball to a running backs a lot more and using that almost as kind of like a inversion of the run game, a la Dana Holgerson, that, but it's not a West Coast offense where you're or a run and shoot where you're using the short pass game to necessarily set that up. But that's how it kind of operates when you have some of these backs that are designed to really, and Ramir's really good, but they're the shiftier backs that you can get out in space. And we saw a lot of throws to the running backs out there, even Dowdle getting in on the action. But I think what they want to do is probably like 60-40 run pass, and really use that run game situationally to set the pass up. And I think it's just a matter of, we have a stable of running backs that is very, very deep. And so it may incentivize them, and very much depending on whether Nebraska gets the lead or a lot or not, to be able to extend drives and be able, because at the same time, this offense wants to milk clock and huddle up and really get the drive, like really sustain a drive and get their defense rest and stuff like that. So in a perfect world, I think it'll be probably 60-40. You look at Baylor, for instance, and their yardage ratio was about 265, I think, through the air to about 160 um, over there. So, and it was very, very balanced in terms of the ratio. I think it was like, I can't remember actually off the top of my head. I looked it up before. So 60-40 is probably perfect. And hopefully, it's a lot of that's playing with the lead. So Nebraska can end up leaning on the run game more, and hopefully it's a little more balanced. So